What broke the coalition wasn't war, wasn't invasion, wasn't political collapse, famine, or plague. What broke them was training, not for soldiers, not for elites, but for a new joint task force designed to explore the most hostile regions of the Perseid frontier. This was meant to be the most advanced, most comprehensive, most punishing training program the galaxy had ever assembled. The coalition called it the Crucible, a place where recruits from 100 species came to be forged into something stronger, sharper, harder. And for almost all of them, it was a nightmare beyond nightmare. There was only one exception, one anomaly, one silent, unbreakable creature who passed through the Crucible not like a trainee, but like a ghost, a human. He did not run faster than the others. He did not hit harder. He did not display super strength or special equipment. He just survived every drill, every hazard, every simulation, every psychological ambush, and he did so with the detachment of a man bored at his desk. He never flinched. He never panicked. He barely spoke. And worst of all, he never showed fear. They called him Soren Hale, a veteran of Earth's private military forces transferred to the coalition under a diplomatic exchange. He had no remarkable achievements on record. No special commendations, no medals, no scandals, no psychological flags, just a simple note at the bottom of his file. Preferred lunch period, 1,300 hours. Eats alone. It became the most terrifying sentence in the Crucible's history, because Soren Hale did not break. Soren Hale did not bend, and as the training became harsher and the Deathworld conditions escalated, Soren Hale remained calm. Everyone else lost their minds. The first true sign of fracture began on day 12, long before the instructors realized the Crucible itself was changing shape around the human. By day 12, several of the trainees of weaker species had already quit or been medically withdrawn. The Crucible had swallowed them, crushed by the gravitational shifts, the thermal anomalies, the psychological gauntlets, and the unpredictable environmental oscillations that simulated the galaxy's harshest worlds. 12 was the first full gravity shear drill, 1 hour inside a shifting gravity well that ranged from 1/10 standard to nearly 15 times normal load. It was meant to push the recruits to the breaking point. It did, for all of them, except one. A Geran collapsed 2 minutes in, choking on its own protein slush. A Vial screamed until its vocal cords fused under the strain. 6 Draxan soldiers tried to hold formation until their tendons tore from their joints. The instructors had to intervene early, dragging most trainees out before bones snapped, all except Soren Hale. But Soren didn't resist the extraction. He wasn't extracted. He wasn't on the floor. He wasn't wailing. He wasn't fighting to stand. He was in the corner, sitting, eating lunch, a simple ration pack, a sandwich. 15 times gravity slammed the room into darkness, and the human calmly took another bite. When they asked him afterward why he hadn't quit the room, he simply replied, "It was lunchtime. The instructors didn't understand." No one did. A dozen species speculated. 100 more whispered. Did his species enjoy pain? Did humans become hungry under lethal pressure? Was gravity comforting? None of the assumptions helped the trainees cope. They had already seen something they couldn't unsee. A human being crushed by forces that imploded starships and choosing to finish his sandwich. Word spread through the Crucible like rot. The quiet human, the calm one, the one who ate while the universe tried to kill him, and something about that silence, that detachment, broke them in ways the drills never could. On day 19, the Crucible raised the stakes. The atmospheric nightmare chamber was introduced. Toxic vapors, low oxygen, variable pressure, extreme temperature whiplash. The chamber was designed to simulate the breath of a Class 18th death world, the kind of world where even microbes had fangs. Most species lasted seconds before gasping, minutes before hallucinating, hours before dying. The recruits lasted 8 minutes. 3 were hospitalized with nerve trauma. 1 went catatonic. Soren Hale lasted longer, but it wasn't endurance that frightened the others. It wasn't his ability to stay conscious. It wasn't even his steady, unblinking calm. It was what he did after. When the chamber finally released him and bodies were dragged out of the haze and medics scrambled to keep the survivors breathing, Soren Hale stepped out, sat down, opened his lunch bag, and ate. Same routine, same posture, same expression. as if walking through the breath of a planet designed to kill anything organic had merely sharpened his appetite. By that point, instructors were whispering too. Not that he was strong, but that he was wrong, not enhanced, just unbreakable. Psychological evaluations turned up nothing unusual. Brain patterns stable, heart rate steady, cortisol readings low, too low. Some trainees began requesting their own lunch hours be rescheduled to avoid proximity to Soren Hale. A few began refusing to eat at all. The sight of him chewing through a sandwich while surrounded by blood and bone and terror had started to unravel their mental state. But the crucible was only warming up. On day 28, the training program escalated into its most brutal round, the Night Terrors, a full-cycle simulation of Class 9 nocturnal predators, constructed from the neural records of every species' deepest ancestral nightmare. The chamber was pitch black. Not empty, just black. Inside, sound moved strangely. Gravity shifted inconsistently. Heat signatures flickered in impossible shapes. The simulation invaded the senses, forcing trainees to confront their species' evolutionary traumas. For almost everyone, it was devastating. The Jaren lost consciousness and curled into defensive larvae posture. The Cillian attempted to claw out its eyes to escape the phantoms. A pair of Veil tore each other apart in the panic. The simulation was so extreme that 3 instructors demanded it be shut down, but they hesitated, froze, because while everyone else screamed, thrashed, fought for sanity, Soren Hale stood perfectly still, not in shock, not in trance, but in curiosity. He watched the shadows, tracked the sounds, tilted his head at the walking horrors that shattered every other mind. And when he eventually sat, he opened his ration pack and ate his lunch, darkness swirling, nightmare entities crawling across the walls, voices whispering slaughter, and the human chewed calmly until the simulation shut down. After that night, the instructors didn't ask why, they only asked how. How could a human withstand everything they threw at him? How could he survive hellscapes unfazed? How could he sit in the shadows of his own fears and chew food like boredom was the enemy? Soren Hale gave the same answer every time. It was lunchtime, but the truth was deeper, darker, and the Crucible would learn that truth in the event that followed, a day that would be recorded in Coalition archives as the Shatterpoint, the day when the Crucible realized what humanity truly was. It began with a simulation malfunction, a fault in the environmental stabilizers, a breach of thermal integrity, a power surge that cascaded through the hazard grid. In minutes, the Crucible became a Deathworld, not a simulation, not a drill, a real one. Temperatures spiked to lethal levels. Gravity collapsed and inverted. Air pressure oscillated. Electrical arcs carved through steel. Predatory constructs malfunctioned and began hunting anything that moved. Every trainee panicked. Every instructor panicked. The Crucible staff initiated lockdown automatically, trapping hundreds inside a maze designed to kill them. It should have been mass extinction. Instead, there was silence. Because on the security feeds, one figure walked alone, not running, not afraid, not screaming, walking through shattered corridors, through blistering heat, through collapsing floors and exploding walls. And every time the feed changed angle, the same detail appeared. Soren Hale holding his lunch, a simple ration, wrapped, untouched. He stopped only once, at the center of the collapsing complex, where flames licked the ceiling and debris fell like meteors and twisted machine predators crawled from the smoke. He sat, opened his meal, and finally ate, while the world died around him. It was not defiance, not madness, not bravado. It was discipline, routine, a ritual born in hell far older than any galactic war. This was what broke the Coalition. Not his strength, not his resilience, not his silence, but the truth they realized that day, that humans didn't just survive Deathworld conditions. They thrived under them, found calm in the chaos, found focus in destruction, found normalcy where other species found oblivion. Humans didn't fear the Crucible. Humans came from one. Soren Hale was finally extracted hours later, escorted through the ruined complex by trembling instructors who had begun to avoid his gaze. He offered no excuses, no explanations. When the Coalition convened afterward, they rewrote their threat assessments, redefined their classification of Earth, and quietly ended the Unified Training Initiative. The Crucible was never restarted. Its final entry in the logs read, "Training impossible. Human baseline exceeds program capacity." But the unofficial report said something else entirely, something whispered only between those who witnessed it firsthand, that the human soldier did not conquer the Crucible. He didn't overpower it, he simply endured it the same way he endured every trial, with discipline, with silence, with ritual, with lunch. Because for Soren Hale, the Crucible wasn't a nightmare. It wasn't horror. It wasn't trauma, it was just another day, another battlefield, another hour between one meal and the next. And that was what broke them. Not the danger, not the simulations, not the Deathworld conditions, but the realization that to humans, hell was familiar enough to eat in.